I'm Chip Freund, and this is the Artist Spotlight, conversations with contemporary artists based on 5 simple questions that explore the artist's journey, creativity, and sources of inspiration. Welcome to another episode of the Artist Spotlight podcast. I'm Chip Freund, and today I'm joined by Alana Knuff. Alana is a gifted oil painter whose work often depicts scenes on or near the water. Like me, Alana is an encore career artist, having left a successful career in capital management in 2008 to pursue her lifelong passion and love of art full-time. I met Alana recently at the opening of the Fine Arts League of Cary's annual Juried show, where her work, Reaching for Safe Harbor, took first place in this national exhibition. Alana, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chip. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm looking forward to this. We had a nice conversation at the show opening, and we share some similar loves and passions. So I think this will be a fun conversation.
Yeah, we're both sailors.
Indeed. So I like to open this up with just a brief summary of a project maybe you just finished or something you're in the midst of or about to start, just to ground the audience a little bit in what you're about.
Well, there are, as artists know, many different exhibits and competitions throughout the year. One of them that I always try to get ready for and submit work for is the Art Renewal Center. I am an associate living master with them, and there is a painting that I just finished. It's called Spring in Guythorne, which once again has a boat and some water, because that seems to be one of the things that I really do enjoy painting the most. And it caught my eye on a trip to Guythorne, which is in Holland. As Guythorne is all a small town with canals for streets, and bridges go from block to block over the canals. And this picture, this painting, as I was turning one of the canals, caught my eye of a yellow rowboat, which was owned by the owner of the house. And that was their transportation to get around Guythorne. So I love it. And I'm a painter who paints for the moment. I'm sure you as a photographer understand that when something catches your eye and you know that it's fleeting, that one moment you want to hold on to, that is what I try to do when I paint. Something catches my eye, and so I go for each moment in life that needs a painting that says, that's special.
Well, neat.
Yeah.
Well, and good luck in getting ready for that next show.
Thank you very much.
The lead question in each one of the podcasts is, what is your earliest memory of making art of any kind?
My earliest memory was as a child, 5, 6, sitting on the back porch in the summertime with a pencil and paper in hand, drawing. And my mom taught art, so she graduated from the Cleveland Art Institute, and I would just draw anything and everything. It didn't even have to be something I saw. It could be out of my imagination. And so that's my earliest recollection of drawing. I always knew I could draw, and I always loved drawing. Took a long time for me to finally succumb to it, though, late in life.
Well, I have an incredible amount of respect, because I've never been able to draw other than, I'll call it mechanical drawing. So I could do drafting work, but I can't do a freehand sketch of anything that it looks anything other than a stick figure. So,
I bet you could if you tried.
I have tried from time to time, but I get frustrated, and part of it is having the patience to invest the time, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, it truly is observation. I think artists just look at things in a different way, and that right brain kicks in, and you see forms and shapes and that people just don't see, and you have to, I guess you could learn to do that. I think you could learn to see it.
Well, and photography in many ways I view as just it's another art form, and you're using light to paint a picture instead of paint and a brush.
Yes, Yes, very much so.
You know,
Yeah.
it is about seeing differently. And that's part of what I love about being an artist is I can, and you too, share with the world the way you see it.
Right, right. And that is the field of art, from abstract to impressionism to realism to photorealism. It gives us that opportunity to share those things.
Indeed, indeed. Well, how did you come to the medium of oil paint and
Yeah. Well, through the years when the kids were small, I did pastel. So I fooled around with pastels, and that was good. And it gave me a sense of color and all that. But they're so impermanent that I didn't like using them that much. And then I went to pen and ink. I love pen and ink, but it seems so rigid. And so I joined up with a group of artists who went over to Italy to do some plein air painting. And I had never been to Italy and I'd never plein air painted. And I thought, oh, this should be fun. And I took my watercolors with me, right? And so I'm painting in watercolor and I'm frustrated. Oh my God. I admire watercolor artists. I think they're amazing. So I'm painting in watercolor, and the artist that I was with said, why don't you try oil? I think you'd like oil. So I said, oh, what the heck? Okay. So I started whipping out some oil paints, and people gave me some on a canvas. And I like the fact that you can make mistakes and you can scrape it off if you want and start over, move the oil around. It's very, what do you call it? It's very malleable. You can push it and do things with it that you can't do with watercolors. Once you lay down watercolor, it's decisive, it's done. And you better know exactly where you're going to put the colors and the paint at any point in time. So that's why I admire watercolor artists. I think they're astounding. But I like the fact that I make mistakes and I want to shift something or change the color or change the value, and oils allows you to do that. It's a very forgiving medium, if you will.
what inspires your art? Where does it come from?
Well, like I said with this art renewal thing, it's the moment. I love to do portraits too. I think my two subjects are either seascapes with boats and marine um, as the subject, or people. I'm fascinated with people because you can capture a person, you can capture the likeness, but more important than the likeness is a moment in their life when they are thinking of something, or you caught them off guard, or it's just that special moment that the personality comes off that canvas. And when I'm doing a portrait, it's exciting. I mean, you're painting along and you're getting the likeness, and everything goes well. And all of a sudden, that person seems to jump onto that canvas, and I get excited. So that that to me is capturing a moment. It's a moment in that person's life, or it's the moment, of turning that canal in Guythorne and seeing the yellow boat all by itself. That those are special moments.
When you paint portraits, do you typically paint from a photograph or do they sit for you?
A little bit of both. And when I get commissions, I usually tell people it'll be a better portrait if you will sit, or I can have a one-on-one photo session with you, because as I'm photographing them, though I'm not a photographer like you, I'm catching the personality and I'm listening to them and I'm seeing their facial gestures, so that I will take one of those photographs and we'll use it as the basis for a portrait. And it usually comes out quite well. One of the most exciting portraits I've done, and it's on my website, it's fairly huge. It's of 5 young boys called The Boys. And they were captured by one of their mothers after attending etiquette class with their mothers, learning how to ask people to dance, blah, blah, blah. And so these personalities, you can just see them. They are so relieved to be out of this class. And I said, oh, that is a moment to capture. So I did The Boys, and it's gotten a lot of attention. It's a wonderful painting. Um, it's that combination of seeing and being with the individual. Um, Artists paint from three things: they photograph as a reference, their memory of the circumstances, the experience, okay, or live. And so when you combine all three of those, you get good results. The most difficult is when somebody hands you a photograph of a deceased friend or relative and says, please do this. And I've done that, but it's been very difficult to find the personality there.
Yeah, I can only imagine. It's just it ends up being both very literal and figuratively very two-dimensional. You don't
Yes,
get the depth of the character
yes,
off of that one image.
right, right. Yep.
Well, thank you for sharing that. What advice would you give to an artist starting out?
Wow. What advice? Well, you have to really have a lot of faith in yourself, I think. And you have to turn off the noise of the world, right? The world has its standards, it has its popular minutes and moments. You got to turn that all off and you have to really do what you know you want to do as an artist. I know that a few years ago, the pendulum had swung to abstract expressionism. It's still there a little bit in the art world, a lot of expressionism, color, pop art. And in the sales were there. And I thought, well, should I change what I'm doing? No, 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 no. You stick to what makes you feel good and what you know you're supposed to be. Um, and that's sometimes hard for an artist to find because you have that long continuum from the totally abstract all the way to photorealism. And so you can sit somewhere on that line and you don't know where you're going to sit. And so finding that spot is important and then locking in and just perfecting your art. So yes, be true to yourself. I think that would be my most important advice to any artist. And enjoy it, for God's sakes. It's a gift. I mean, I think it's a gift. Everybody tells me you've got a wonderful gift. Well, yeah, thanks, I do. And I enjoy my gift. I like using it as much as I can. And that's why it gets exciting when somebody sees one of your pieces and says, oh, I love it. And you go, oh, yes, I do too.
And
You
then
work so hard.
hopefully the next sentence is, and I'd like to take it home.
Yeah, yeah, that's what we wish too. But I there are many stories. I used to partake in down in Charleston, Piccolo Spoleto for years, and a lot of people. What fun of it was meeting all these people and being with other artists. Like two dimensions: one, sharing time with other artists and meeting a whole bunch of people, and seeing them look at your work and yes, buying it and taking it home. And a quick story: this one young man fell in love with one of my paintings, and he had to be young, probably just out of college. And he said, "Oh, I love your painting." He said, "I really want it." He said, "But if I buy your painting, I can't go over to Europe. I can do one or the other. I only have so much money." And I said, "Well, then why don't you go to Europe? If you have, you see the world." So at the end of the towards the end of Piccolo Spoleto, the last day, he shows up again and he buys my painting. And I said, well, you're not going to be able to go to Europe. He said, that's okay. I can always go to Europe, but I don't want to lose this painting. And I said, okay. Well, years go by, Chip. 3 years later, I'm still at Piccolo Spoleto in my tent. And along comes this gentleman and he looks at me. He said, you don't remember me, do you? And I said, well, you meet a lot of people. And he said, I bought such and such a painting. It was called Autumn Walk. And I said, oh, yeah. I said, so when did you get to Europe? And he said, I got to tell you the truth. He said, I bought your painting and I went to Europe that summer. I said, you stinker. He said, I just wanted to see what you'd do. He said, and I love the painting. I said, that's good. So
Well, that's a fun story.
it
And
is.
I love Charleston. My oldest went to college at Charleston, so I got down there quite a bit while he was in school.
That's
Uh,
a wonderful school. Yeah.
and just a great town. I mean, it's just got so much history, and it's a wonderful food scene, and the arts are strong. So
Yes, yes, yes. I enjoyed my years. I was in Charleston for almost 22 years, something like that. Yeah.
well, that brings us now to the final question. It's our time has gone by so fast. The final question is, what artist or artist would you recommend folks go check out? This could be somebody you just discovered, somebody who's been a long influence of yours, living, dead, what have you. What's a couple artists we should go check out?
Well, one is Anders Zorn. Zorn lived the 19th century, turn of the 19th century. He was Swedish. Anders Zorn used 4 colors to paint, and that's it. And whenever I teach, I start my students off with just those 4 colors because there's an infinite amount of variety with those 4 colors. So he used ivory black, he used cadmium red, yellow ochre, and white. And from those, he made magnificent portraits to the point where Gardner, she was here, the Elizabeth Gardner Museum in Boston. She encouraged him to come to the United States, and he ended up painting portraits of Taft, Grover Cleveland, and Teddy Roosevelt. So he became quite the masterful portrait artist. And so I would say look up Anders Zorn because he knew how, well, forms and shapes, and he was good at portraits, but he also knew how to use those colors. Masterfully, he can even pull a blue out of a black. It's really a little combination touch where you might get gray if you do black and white, but he could pull a blue out of it. Anyway, so that would be one. I really think he's good. Sorolla, who was Spanish, is probably one of the best for light. He captured light, the brightness when his scenes, both of the water and sunlight. And there's one with all of his daughter and his wife, and another one where they're mending a fishing net, and the light. It's incredible how he was able to capture that. So I would say study Sorolla, study Anders Zorn. And then being a marine artist, there's a Russian, Ivan Azanovsky, who his treatment of water and waves are just, nobody's equaled them. So look at those as well, but the world's full of wonderful artists. Those are 3 of my favorites, though.
Well, thank you for those recommendations. I definitely will spend some time personally, and hopefully the audience will be able to get into them as well.
Yes.
I will include links to all of the artists' work in the show notes so that folks can easily find and explore their artwork.
And then I think I'd add one more, Richard Schmidt. He is, I'm sure you've heard of him, alla prima. He is the Bible on how to oil paint. So if I would recommend any artist who's interested in oil painting to find that book, alla prima, and it's a reference you just go back to over and over again. So
no, that's a solid addition there. Thank you.
Yep.
Well, that brings us to the end of our time. And if folks want to check out your work, they can certainly go to your website, Alana Knuff. That's ALANAKNUFF.com, as well as you can see Alana's art at the Art Council of Moore County's Campbell House Gallery and Sparrow House Interiors in Pinehurst. And thank you again, Alana, for your time today. And again, congratulations on taking first place at the Falk Annual Juried Show. And I really appreciate getting to know you a little bit better and exploring your artistic journey here a bit today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chip, for having me. I appreciate it too.
Thank you for joining us. This has been the Artist Spotlight with Chip Freund. Find accompanying blog posts at chipfreundphoto.com/blog, and you may subscribe to our show on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you like listening.